take Wendel, Wendel, German word, to mean um, in English wending our way. So then, therefore, the common translation as wanderer, the Wendel, and connected to is German that means to turn, and Harman, the student of Heidegger, has used this, has preferred this Wende to der Kehre, the common term given out of, I think correctly, out of Heidegger's text, in the early text, to name. I'm not absolutely sure on that, to tell you the truth. Like what it's in the record of it is in Sheehan and in his treatment of the recommendations of Hermann in his translation. But I think Sheehan regards this as sensible and is not violating any of the canons of interpretation in a way that requires any special justification beyond the few words that he says. This name, then, instead of this Forest Pass guide or Führer, we could instead speak of the Wendel, and I think this Wendel or Wender produces an access to the basic problems of that Heideggerian science has attempts to find a path in contradistinction to ontic science, and it's like the two distaff or the wands of Clotho. It has to do with spinning and wands. There's a lot of very, I think, powerful work done around the notion of the wand, I believe, already in by scholars of Homer. This, of course, it plays a big role in the graphe, the notion, this other notion of like a knitting needle, which could also mean the stylus that writes, graphe, which could also mean, in a way, it's almost touching towards a wand. Now, could it be identified with distaff exactly? But it does have to do with the work, not the work of spinning out that Penelope was doing, right? Now, the description of exactly what was happening there, she wasn't running a spinning wheel, I don't think, but that comes in to some extent. I think it's kind of interesting, but as long as Clotho had that's true too. Exactly when did Clotho get connected with spinning? But what comes to mind to me here is, first that was an industry. That was a major industry for the Greeks, but when did it become so? Maybe, and I believe in this sort of archaic Silk Road, or Silk Road, Seidenstrasse, when the ancient world was accused of this import imbalance with China and sending all the Romans had to pass laws saying you can't buy all this silk or whatever. I believe they were also sending back their own products, especially glass, but maybe also some products produced on their spinning wheels. But in any case, this image of the spinning, I think, makes a nice contrast to the image we always get of original things in a target and hitting the target. For instance, in when Aristotle's saying, or the Aristotelian sort of derived saying that great minds think alike, great minds think alike, rather than the brutal dogma that so many people sort of live in and take so much pride in without ever having considered what it means to always say, oh, well, shouldn't we think for ourselves? Well, why? No, great minds think alike, so you really want to just imitate the way the great minds is thinking is kind of the natural way of thinking, because it's like if you want to do something, then you sort of say, oh yeah, I see how you're doing it, and then that means you're imitating it. That doesn't mean you're, what is this encouragement to think for yourself? No, think like the one who has possession of that wending, or of that way of wondering, does it. So I think this image of this spinning goes better with what Heidegger's doing. Okay, so let's I'll do more on this because there's a lot more to be said, but I want to start by establishing this metaphoring, also connected to this Hermann paper as translated by Sheehan. And let's say it's sort of straightforwardly, there's like a column, and on it is a statue of a target and an archer, and we have all this Nietzschean talk of the tension in the bow, and you could think of somebody who's sort of has their arms basically wide open as they're being crucified in order to hold one of these great Achaean bows open. Not sure if the Achaeans actually used bows. They probably mostly used bronze spears. But you could imagine that from the time of the Battle of Agincourt or whatever. There's some bows that are big enough that you have to actually sort of use your whole body to open them up and to create the full tension and the full potentiality of them. This seems to be always with the Western science, right? And then we have this other image of the spinning, but exactly what is, and this I want to place at the center of Heidegger, taken as a rubric, just the red letters Heidegger, as people like Dugin, Sheehan, and Hermann are going towards. And then I want to try to suggest in the next video how here it's something like the way of Plato's seventh letter, where the fire leaps from branch to branch. If thinkers are thinking Heideggerian science together, then the language barriers, something beside from language is involved in the basic wending, such that only those in the immediate, as it were, forest path will be participant. And so then therefore, this shows that Heideggerian science can produce this situation, in potentia at least. For impossibile people tried to do this. There's at least a dangerous, perhaps, if not, to use a Nietzschean formulation, if not something more, with the more potential and more sustaining power. But this would only work if the languages broke down, as Duke can sort of suggest in that moment, because I find very fruitful and very there's a proficiency that you gain from using this approach and thinking as Dugan does, as this point is the point before any language problems, before any these again being ill at ease because something is lost in the translation, right? Happens, can be thought along with Aristotle's notion of actus purus. And this is where I'm placing Clotho. This is where I'm placing the spinning. Much more could be done to help us to find that it's not Thelmazine. It's not wondering with the O. It's vending. It's velta. It's the act of the wanderer. It's not Thelmazine like, oh, I've been charmed by something. It's rather, it's a turning, which marks the coming into the way things unfold, in the way we get in a weak form that doesn't really work when we'd use the hammer example, because the hammer example is just the example of like one thing being used as ready to hand. It's more like apply it in a sudden jolt to everything, but in a certain way that's unthinkable. But we're trying to think it, and one way we're trying to think it, as I mentioned, is through, if you had that experience of being a hiker in the wilderness and coming into a clearing, there's a different way of being sort of comes in, which you can, then you're used to it, and then you know the clearing's there, and then even though you're still transitioning the way of being, you don't notice. He's trying to show the moment of its inceptive erogenous moment.